I'm going to show you how I built out a dashboard and a Python notebook to analyze the text of all the reviews for Amazon's Rings of Power show, and I'm going to show you how I did it. It's going to take about 12 minutes. If you want to watch, stay tuned. Hey, welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do some data analysis on some reviews, and in this case, we're going to use Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power from Amazon. Controversial show as far as the ratings of it went, so I thought it'd be interesting to go ahead and do some web scraping on the reviews and then analyze the text of the data to find out what users are actually saying. We're going to use IMDb because it's one of the main movie and show rating websites on the internet, and this is going to be pretty straightforward. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to want to do is just go to Chrome. We're going to go to IMDb, and I'm going to use a Chrome extension. If you don't know how to install Chrome extensions, just in the top right hand corner you can click the little three buttons in your Chrome extension, in your Chrome browser, and then go to settings, which will then take you to where you can click on extensions and eventually go to the Chrome Web Store. You just install the extension, and then it is in your up where your bookmarks are. So all I'm going to do right now is just go in here, and I'm going to say, okay, let me go ahead and use this is called Instant Data Scraper. It's awesome. I love it. And what this does here is it automatically just detects a table that it thinks that I want, and it's going to go pull. But the only problem we have is that this is only pulling 25 rows. So IMDb does have a feature in place where you have to go down, you have to load more. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to exhaust myself, but I'm going to go through and do this a couple of times so that I can get more data. All right, so now I have about 775 rows. That's way more than I even need for this because I just want to get a sample size. There's like 297,000 reviews of this on IMDb alone. So I've got a couple of things here. I don't really need to care about the display name of the user who left the review. I need the text, and then I'm going to keep the rest of this. The title is good. The point scale rating is good. I want all of those, all these attributes right here. So at this point, I'm just going to say download an Excel. I'm going to get that, and then I'm going to move into Excel, open this up, and then we're going to work on it in there. Okay, so let's do a little bit of cleaning and conditioning. So we got the rating, or the user rating. This one looks good, except for the ones that are null, but we can just ignore that. The point scale, this says out of 10, but let's go through here, and I just am going to want to find every slash and get rid of it. Perfect. And then the title, that's fine. The title href, we actually don't need this, so I'm going to get rid of that. The display name, yeah, the user link, don't need that. The date, this is great, but what I want to do here is see if I can change this in some sort of date field, and it looks like it doesn't really want to do that. So let me see if it will. Yeah, I think this is good enough because we're not going to worry too much about the time series. We have the review text, and then we have the however many out of however many found this helpful. So let's do this. I want to split this up so that we have the number, and we'll do data, text to columns, and we'll split by delimited, and we'll add a space, and then we have finish, and then we'll say get to that, and then we'll say found helpful, total, loaded, and then we'll do the difference. So it'll be like this one minus this one, and this would be loaded, not helpful. We put underscores in here, just keep it clean. But what I'm going to do is run that all the way down. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste in the values. Okay, great. So now we have, see, like on this one, we had a lot of people that said that it wasn't helpful. So it's an interesting kind of metric to capture. We can even do like a percentage where we check and we see, you know, the percent of helpfulness or whatever. But honestly, we want to get the sentiment versus like what people thought about the comment. That'll be kind of cool. And then I just calculated dividing this by this to get a percentage, and then just paste it in the real value here. I'm going to chop this down so that way it only ever represents 2 decimals. And then I think we're good. So let's go ahead and take this and oh yeah, one more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to divide this by this to get a percentage of, you know, like how, like out of 10 what the math is on that. It's like a favorability score. It's like 50% favorability score. This one is blank, no problem. Copy and paste those in as real values. So we got like 9 out of 10 is like 90% you like it, 2 disappointing. All right, so let's go ahead and take this and bring this up to, I think we're going to take this into Google Sheets, and then we're going to maybe run some analysis in Python using Google Colab, and then we'll probably make a dashboard in Google Data Studio. Maybe, maybe not. We're going to find out. All right, so when we get into Google Colab, what we did is we just uploaded the finished Excel sheet up to Google Drive, and then opened it in Sheets so that it was available to just kind of hang out there and look at. And at which point I tried to bring that over to Google Colab. It wasn't easy. And so ultimately what I did was, and I think that maybe Google phased that out, so I just brought this up into the file section, just straight upload here. And what we're going to do is just go through the script here. So it's a little bit of a longer one than some of the other projects I've done, but I'll leave the link in the description for the code. So what we did here is we imported pandas, TextBlob, and then opened that CSV up. From there, we went into TextBlob, and then we went through and got the sentiment, which is basically just a general rating of the overall sentiment of the entire text. Now, we got that, we put that in the data frame over here in this column. And then from here, we went into import NLTK, and there's a couple different packages, one of them being Sentiment Intensity Analyzer. All you really need to know about this is that this can define things like what the polarity score was. So that's like how negative, neutral, or positive the comment was, and it kind of gives it a rating for that. So once again, this is an algorithm, so it's not necessarily 100% accurate. So kind of depends, but it will give it a score that will say, hey, was this more negative, neutral, or positive? Now, one thing I did and do want to stress is that if you do this with some data, you're going to want to look at that data to ensure that it is in line with what the algorithm said it was. So went through, brought in another NLTK package called Punkt, and then went through to tokenize some of the words. And the whole goal here was to find the most negative and positive phrases. So we went and looped through all the sentences and found all the most negative or positive phrases in the entire text. So if you had a full review and you're like, well, I liked this or I hated this, the idea was that it would come through and it would find those and it would put right next to the text the most negative and positive phrase. So yes, the cinematography is great. No diss to the actors, just wildly miscast. So it's kind of the negative, positive. So that works out pretty good, and I was pretty happy with how that came out. Overall, what I did want to do from there is get an overall sentiment score, which is just sort of a numerical across the board. It's supposed to be between 4 and -4, I think, and just spits that out. But what I ultimately ended up doing with that is getting a kind of binary positive or negative based off of the overall sentiment score. But then I was like, well, maybe I want to refine this a little bit more to be on kind of like a 3 different levels. So if, you know, it could be negative, positive, or neutral based on this logic, which when I checked it in the end, I think I got it right, but it was a little bit tricky. It's not super straightforward with some of these when you're working with them. Just tweak things around and just sort of read the text and sort of gauge as a human being, did your logic come out the correct way? So from there, we ended up with a little bit more negative reviews than positive, and then we wrote that to another CSV. And at this point, we have this in our files here. I said download on this, and then for real, we took it and put that back into Google Sheets, where we then opened it into Google Data Studio, and then we made a dashboard. Yeah, and in this part of the project, went into Google Data Studio with the Google Sheet finally, had to go through the notebook to bring that up. But from here, I was just trying to gain some analytic insight from the data, and I had actually not analyzed any sentiment analysis of any text before in a dashboard like this. So it was kind of an interesting learning experience. So what I tried to do was provide, you know, the neutral and negative percentages across the board. Went and looked back at the schema to kind of, you know, remember exactly what columns I had set up and why. It would have done me some good to have done a little bit of data planning ahead of this. But what I did was I kind of set up 2 lists of just like the most positive phrases and the most negative phrases. And then from there, I did want to know a little bit about when they occurred, because I did have some dates. So I sort of wanted to see, you know, when the show published, how fast was the onset of all the reviews, and when did that happen? And then from there, just wanted to gain a couple more pieces of insight of just like, you know, what was the negative score over time and what was the positive score over time. So I made a separate chart for that you'll see here at the end. But overall, it was a pretty fun and challenging project, and definitely recommend trying this out.